Welcome back. Now, before the break, you will have noticed that we were riding around Portimao in Portugal on Honda's
Matt,
new Fireblade. Yes, Donovan.
You said we were getting a lovely new studio.
Yes.
You know, fancy studio,
Yes.
fancy establishment, fancy everything. Why are we at your house?
Yes, there's been a slight problem there. The roof. It fell off.
The roof fell off.
Yes, it's a minor problem. Don't worry. My plans
A minor
for a massive
problem,
studio,
the roof fell off.
It's a minor roof. Okay, it's a really big roof, actually.
I'm filled with confidence.
Yes, next week we'll have some good news.
We have a roof.
The roof will be on again, yes. Okay, back to the bikes. We've got 3 models. We're not going to talk about the top one. That's an SP2. That's mainly for race homologation. It's what the SP is, but you can tip a load of extraordinary money into the engine and you'll be able to race World Superbikes. So we've got a stock model. I say stock, it's still amazing. It's the RR. Now this is, I'm going to say stock suspension, but it's just traditional suspension.
Yeah, it's more traditional suspension, which means it's very, very, very good.
Incredibly good.
Yeah.
Shower up front, multi-adjustable in every facet you could possibly think. And this comes with a stock motor with a stock amount of electronics. Now, the motor itself, what do we think after we've ridden it?
Well, they say 189 horsepower,
Yes.
which, I mean, it's a little bit down on everything else. I mean, like, you got the Panigales up to 205, the other Jap bikes all around 200.
Can you honestly say that on the track, though, that you felt that it was down?
I'm going to say this. I think we should hang on, because when we get to the whole chassis of this bike, I think a big 205 horsepower motor is going to ruin it.
Okay, well, I can't believe Donovan's just said that. Too much
Oh, yeah.
power might ruin the bike.
Yes.
Okay, so when you move up to the SP2 version, now we don't know prices, I'm going to guesstimate here. I think the RR version will be about 250,000 rand in this country. You go up to the SP, you're probably looking at 300, 310. Now, what do you get for all that extra money? Well, what do you get?
Well,
you get less weight
Yeah,
for
you
a
get
start.
less weight. It's got a titanium fuel tank.
Which we did pick as amazing.
Yeah, they did. They had one line
Yeah.
there. They had the standard plastic one and then the titanium one. I mean, the titanium one we're picking
It does
up
feel as
with
light
our
as
pinky
this
finger
notebook.
like this.
Yeah, it was
nothing.
incredible. So you've got a titanium exhaust that's common to both of them, but the SP1 doesn't have any improvements to the engine other really than the quick shifter, which comes as standard with the SP version.
But you can get it as an option on these normal RR, and if you don't take that, quite frankly, you're mad.
Yes, you are insane, because it's a very good system. Like all of them, it works smooth on the upshift, but we all noticed that on the downshift, possibly one of the best that we've ever used. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, so what does the SP bring to the party then?
It's got something called Olin's, smart electronic suspension.
I'm
something
glad you
like
tried to remember that. I would call it Olin's adaptive suspension.
Olin's
Electronic adaptive,
Yeah, basically it measures what the track is doing 100 times a second and then makes the suspension work.
And reacts accordingly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, adjusting your damping and that sort of thing.
It does all the dampings and things. But what I find amazing about it is, you know, with most other suspension, I mean, if you want to adjust suspension, you've got to hire someone for a lot of money.
Absolutely.
They arrive with a screwdriver, they play with stuff, and it works. Sometimes it works. You don't know. I mean, you're not going around a corner thinking, I could really use more compression damping.
Well, this is the problem. You've hit the nail on the head. There are other superbikes with these electronically adjustable systems, but basically you have to understand how suspension works. So if, for instance, you're going into a corner, it feels a bit wobbly, you need to know that you need to adjust high and low pressure, speed compression damping and rebound damping at the back. You don't know. No one knows, really.
Exactly.
You just don't know. But what Honda have done is change the interface, change the way that you talk to your suspension.
Yes, it gives you more. Okay, let's put it this way. When you've got a problem, you don't say, I think I need more compression. You say, every time I put on brakes for that corner, I feel like I want to die.
Yes, it dies too much or it feels unstable.
So you go into this computer on this thing and you say, and it says there corner or braking, sorry. It says braking, so you click on buttons, make braking better, and this thing magically makes all the damping work and braking works.
And you can adjust it, you can even set your own user base within that. So you've actually got, it'll say, as Donovan says, braking, there's a mid-turn part of it, there's acceleration on the outside. So for instance, if you're coming out of a turn and you think the thing's wallowing a bit, well, basically you go to, exit of the turn, adjust accordingly, and amazingly, you can feel the difference pretty quickly. It's definitely going to improve, I think, the ability for the average rider to get the most from him and his bike. However, on the opposite side of that, is it a bit restrictive for anyone who really knows what they're doing? Actually, change that question, Don. Does anyone really know what they're doing?
I don't think so. But what it does do, it does still give you the option of adjusting it yourself.
Yes. Okay, well, talking about the Blade as a whole, then, they haven't gone, this is typical Honda really, they haven't gone down the big horsepower route again, like the 1992 original Blade, they haven't followed that route, but what they have done is given us ease of use, usability.
This bike is now Euro 4 compliant, and 15 kilograms lighter than its predecessor.
That's the amazing thing. It's not necessarily the engine. Yes, you've got another 11 horses out of the engine. Yes, it is. It's got a great mid-range. Yes, we think it's fast, but it's probably not quite as fast at the top as some of the existing bikes. But the weight saving is where all the attention, all the money has gone. 15 kilos is huge.
Yes, I know. Somewhere in the mid-2000s, a lot of the manufacturers got into this whole thing where the bikes don't necessarily need to be lighter. We just do mass centralization and they feel lighter. So they thought they could get away with building heavy bikes, just put mass centralization. And all you ended up having was really heavy bikes that felt not quite as heavy as they should.
They actually
what I mean?
Yes.
And what they've done now is they've decided that the best way to make a bike feel light
is
make it light.
I know, it's a revolutionary thought. We're taking the mick a little bit because this stuff sounds easy, but it's very, very difficult. So when they're trying to shave, I think they shave 2 kilos from the engine itself, but not inconsiderable amount. You're looking at like the width of the plastics on the fairing, the length of the nuts and bolts, the diameter of the nuts and bolts.
There were some big changes. The exhaust is titanium on all the models. I mean, that's a 2.8 kilogram saving. The ABS system is lighter. They've used magnesium covers in some of the engine. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're getting to about 6 kilograms. The rest of it is all just going through every single detail of that bike. Can this bolt still function if it was slightly shorter? This radiator hose if it was a bit thinner? Those plastics, can they be thinner? Every single bike. I mean, you just imagine these Japanese guys sitting there looking at a bolt.
Unfortunately, I can imagine. I met a few of them. They're good lads, actually. I was impressed with the Japanese this time, but you can definitely see attention to detail is their thing.
Exactly.
Okay, well, what I thought was particularly great for Honda is Portimao. This is a seriously challenging track. So to launch your bike there says, hey, we got a lot of confidence in it. I want to give you a close-up look. Follow us now as we take a lap on board and we'll give you a taste and a feel for what Portimao's like. This is a clockwise track, so it's out of pit lane and into a right-hander. You've got to be careful here because entering the track means getting in the way of riders barreling into the first turn from the high-speed straight, and, well, you can't see the straight because it's set higher than the exit to pit lane. The only quarter of the lap is actually Portimao's worst part. These two nondescript right-handers lead into a tight right, a first gear corner if you want it to be, a burst of gas and then it's a sharpish left where you've got to force yourself to apex late or you'll run off the curbs on the exit. Up through third gear on this short straight and then you've got to start braking before you can see the next turn. It's a left-hand hairpin that is downhill and feels like it's going to push the front loose every time you come round it. From here though, the circuit really starts to come to its own, providing a serious challenge not just for the rider but the bike as well. Accelerating hard uphill here, try not to drift too far to the right because you need to get set up again for this next quick right-hander. Start braking again quite early because this next sharp right is slower than you think. On the gas hard, then uphill now, the bike will often start wheeling here, there's nothing you can do about it. The next left is fast, and it's at the bottom of the dip, so the bike squirms under the extra G-forces before it goes really light again as you crest the next rise and start braking and turning for another corner you can't yet see properly. Out of here the track drops off another cliff, but you need to pull it as far right as possible so you can get the line through the next left-hander where the G-forces are again doing their best bit to squash you flat. This tight left that comes up, that needs to be patient here because you've got to accelerate only very briefly into a series of right-handers, and these are possibly the highlight of the track for me. Gradually they open up and you snip through to fourth gear, take a deep breath, nail the throttle, feel the rear end squirming as all the electronics take care of you while you get prepared and straightened up for a fourth or fifth gear wheelie over the rise in the start-finish straight. This is your only chance for a short rest before the madness that is Portimao starts all over again.
Okay, that was a very good lap, Matt, but I was also doing a bit of onboard filming, and I noticed there was one bit where you were not that smooth.
Yes, there was a bit where I suddenly needed to go to the toilet very, very quickly indeed. That was early in the day, it was on the stock RR model, and we were actually, you were filming me.
Did you hear that? The racing excuses are starting. Go on, carry on. How cold
you
were your tires? Tire pressure was off.
I was filming Clinton P&R ahead of us. Some rude person got in between us, and I thought, reasonably, that I should get him out of the way so I could keep filming Clinton.
So you opened the throttle?
So actually, I kind of took a tight line into that left-hander there, which was very, very silly. Second lap, first left-hander, loads of gas. Yes, I nearly had a heart attack. That is as close as I've come to crashing in a long time. But what I want to do do want to say is a massive kind of positive out of that. I'd like to boast that I actually caught it just before it flipped me over the high side.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
No.
Honda's traction control got me, and I got back in the pit. So it stepped out a good distance.
Yes.
But it was on 2 out of 9. And 1 is, you're having a laugh, you're obviously Kevin Schwantz.
Yes.
Number 2 is, you think you're Kevin Schwantz, but you're Matt Durrans. And
maybe you should consider 3.
Yes, 3, just don't go out again. Okay, well, I think we've got enough detail there. We could go on for hours and hours and hours. Verdict. Just top verdicts. What do you reckon, Don?
You know what I think about this thing? It's a rider's bike. I think this is for somebody who's going to a track, who's more interested in lap times, more interested in getting the most out of a track riding, all windy roads, all the 22, anything
I'd agree
like
with that, but I'd also disagree a little bit. I think it's going to be possibly one of the better superbikes for the road. It's typical Honda. It's easy to ride. It's not the most power, but it does feel quick enough. It's a polished product. It's a Fireblade, just like it always has been.